Lesson 8.1, adding and subtracting polynomials. So our main objective here today is to write polynomials in standard form and to be able to add and subtract polynomials. The adding and subtracting polynomials was definitely introduced to you in pre-algebra last year. Standard form, we'll just kind of clean it up and make sure you understand how the answer has to look at the end. The standard here is A1.6.1. So let's just talk about polynomials in general. Poly means many. We've already talked about monomials, and mono means one. Well, a polynomial is either a monomial or a sum of them. So polynomials is the whole category of all nomials, let's call it that. All of them, including single terms, which is monomial. One term, for example, we said 5a or 7xy, which would be a number, a variable, or a product of them. Okay, binomial would be a sum of two monomials, so 6x plus 7. So 6x is a monomial, 7 is a monomial. When you add them together, it becomes a binomial. And a trinomial is a sum of three of them, so 4x minus 3y plus 9m. So each of those are individual terms. When you put them all together, there's three of them, and that makes it a trinomial. So either you're going to talk about a monomial, a binomial, trinomial, or a polynomial. We're not going to call anything else with more than that terms anything but a polynomial. Okay, that's generally what you do. In algebra, you kind of stay concerned with just these three anyway. Okay, so if you can remember what the condition was to make it a monomial, you'll be great with this. Monomials were variables, numbers, or products. The two things that kept it from being a monomial was a variable in the denominator, so that's true here, can't have that, or a variable in a radical sign, can't have that. That would disqualify it from being anything. So let's look at this and see if we can figure out if it is. So the question is it a polynomial? And if so, what kind? So example A, x squared plus 2y minus 7. Are you thinking it's a polynomial or not?
Yes.
Yes. So we definitely say yes. And if we said yes, what kind is it, Octavia? Trinomial. All right, B. What about 4a squared minus b? What do you think, Avery?
Yes.
Yes, and what kind is it? Binomial. All right, C. 4a squared minus b to the negative 2 power. My tree. No. And why not? Right, because b to the negative 2 is 1 over b squared, and you cannot, that is not a monomial. In other words, I got a variable and a denominator. You could just say that part. You didn't have to say not a monomial. It's a variable and a denominator. That is what eliminated it from being a monomial. Okay, so basically you're going to determine yes or no. If it's yes, you say monomial, trinomial, binomial. If there's more than three, then you would just say polynomial. If it's not, you need to say why not. Okay, questions about any of those examples? Next, degree. We talked about this last year too. We'll see if you remember. Degree of a monomial. So it's really important you understand the difference between these next two sections. Degree of a monomial. It is the sum of the exponents on the variable. So if I look at these polynomials, we've got to find the degree. So example D, 4a squared b cubed. Josh?
5.
It is 5 because a squared b cubed is where you'd be focusing. I've got a 2 and a 3. That would make the degree 5. All right, example E, 7. What would be the degree of that monomial, Ben? 0. Because there is no variable, so the variable's exponents must be 0. All right, F, 5x. What would that one be? Evan?
1.
Definitely 1. If you don't see a number there, but there is a variable there, it automatically has the exponent of 1. And finally, G, 8xyz. Megan?
3.
Definitely 3, because each one of those variables would have a 1, and you'd add it up, it'd be 3. Okay, that, hopefully you kind of remember it, or if you didn't remember it, it's not too tough. It's just the degree of a monomial. All right, now, we have to kind of up it a little bit when we talk about degree of a polynomial. Slightly different, and here's where it gets tough because kids forget and they start adding all the way across that polynomial, and that's where they make mistakes. That is not what you do. For the degree of a polynomial, so something that's a binomial, trinomial, or more terms than that, it's the highest degree on one of its terms. So the example that's listed there, here's this polynomial, 12 minus 10b plus 6bc plus 8bc squared. What I did was, below each one of those terms, I wrote its degree. So 12 has a degree of 0. 10b, degree of 1. 6bc has a degree of 2. And 8bc squared has a degree of 3. Now, don't add all those up and say that's the degree of that polynomial, because that is not true. You pick out the highest one only. And in this case, it's a 3. So the degree of that polynomial is 3. It's not 6. Doesn't say to add them up all the way across. It says find the highest one and go with that. Yes? Because bc squared, there is a 1 on the b and a 2 on the c. So that makes that one a 3. Okay? So now we need to look at our two examples that go with this. 2x to the 5th yz minus x squared yz squared. So you look at its first term, 2x to the 5th yz. What's the degree of just that one term? 7. And then x squared yz squared, what's the degree of that term? 5. So the highest of the two then would be the degree of this thing, so you would say degree equals 7. Okay, next. 3r cubed plus 5r squared s squared minus s cubed. So find the degree of each term. The first term is 3. What's the second one? 4. And what's the third one? 3. So my highest degree would be the degree of the polynomial, which would be 4. 4. Now, if you have two that are highest, like there was a 4 and a 4, then you just go with 4. Okay? So whatever's highest, that's what you go with. All right, please do not confuse those last two things. That, you know, right now you're sitting here and we're going through it individually and you're like, "Oh yeah, I'm not going to forget that." But I can't tell you how many kids sit there and they think they got it, and then they turn around and do it on the homework and they say, "Oh yeah, add up all the exponents." And they go through and they add all the way across on that like number H, they'd say, "Oh, nope, the degree is 12." So please don't let that be you, okay? Please don't let that be you. Be aware of the difference between the two. All right, questions. Well, so far, we've done stuff that we've already done before. Ethan.
So wouldn't you just do one term for each of those? So for each
polynomial and monomial degree, wouldn't you just do one term?
Well, on the polynomial, you got to find the degree of every term and figure out which one's the highest.
Yeah, so it's just using the one term.
Yeah.
And then monomial is using one term too.
Correct. Correct. That is right. Okay. Now let's do something. I'm not sure that I touched on this last year because it was so new, introducing all the polynomials and all the things with it. I might not have. So, but now in algebra, it's going to become a must. Okay, you really need to learn standard form, and I've been talking about that in a lot of different things. When I say standard form, that just means that's the way it should look, and it's kind of a standard thing and uniform like around the world. Okay, so not just making it up for 8th grade algebra. We're talking this is the way you would see it, whether you'd be in Milan, Indiana, or in California or New York or in Europe or China or wherever. I'm just saying it's standard form. That's the way you should do it. That's the way it is. Okay, so to standard form for a polynomial, you write the terms in descending order of the exponents. Now, descending order. Who knows what descending means? Zach. Falling, goes down. So it starts high and goes low. Now, if there's more than one letter, you usually do your X. Okay? Or, if there's more than one letter and there's not an X, then you follow alphabetical order. If there's A's and B's and C's, you go in descending order of your A. Okay? So X, Y's, and Z's, you go in descending order of your X's. That's just the way it is. So here's this polynomial right here, 8 plus 7x squared minus 12xy cubed minus 4x cubed y. It is definitely not in standard form, okay? And it is not a monomial, binomial, or trinomial either. So usually on this, they're going to give you several terms. So you look through for your x. What's the highest exponent on any of my x's, Jared? 3. So you would start this as, and be careful, negative 4x cubed y. Remember, the sign just before the term is attached to it forever and always. That's a negative 4x cubed y. Okay, what is the next exponent on an x, Megan? 2. So plus 7x squared. And then what's next? Next number would be?
Negative 12xy cubed.
Negative 12xy cubed. And then you always finish off with a constant term because it definitely has an exponent of 0. That is standard form. Questions about that? Because you'll have some practice at that. What?
So you just always do it in alphabetical order?
Yes.
Even if it was something before X and an X?
Yes. Yes. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Here we go. Let's see what's next. I think we're finally getting to what we were talking about in the title. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to stop this video, and because we won't get done, we'll go ahead and do it 2 videos and do the second one over the adding and subtracting.